Let's speak now to former NATO Commander Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Very upsetting, but I think not surprising. After a week of a kind of a truce, that is over. Israel always said it would return to hostilities. Israel is also saying that Hamas has reneged on its pledge to release 10 hostages a day. They said that yesterday only 8 were released, and they're not releasing enough women as agreed. Meanwhile, Hamas arguably being terribly provocative, apart from firing rockets, they were marched into Jerusalem yesterday and shot 3 people dead at a bus stop. It was quite clear, was it not, Chris? Or Hamas have made it very clear they didn't want this truce to continue.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hamas has never wanted a ceasefire except to rearm and redeploy. And it's quite clear that Hamas has been receiving supplies of armaments, probably from Syria, also from Lebanon as well. And I think we have to understand that the central point of this campaign is not the hostages. It's actually eliminating Hamas as a threat to Israel and providing justice for the victims of the 7th of October. When some of the most unspeakable crimes known to man were actually committed. So we've got to keep focus on what is going on here. Israel's got a window of legitimacy in which it can conduct these operations. And the longer it goes on, the more that legitimacy is going to erode.
Is that not surely part of Hamas's strategy here? Many people criticise them of using the civilians of Palestine as human shields. And these acts of provocation, which invite a reinstigation of the bombardment, do you think their hope is that perhaps, as well as receiving weapons from Syria and Lebanon, they might invite other regional powers such as Iran into the fray?
Well, there's no doubt that the operations are coordinated loosely with Iran anyway. We've seen that with the Houthi rebels firing missiles and launching unmanned kamikaze drones from Yemen up towards Israel. Iran is not yet ready to take on this sort of conflict. You know that 2 American carriers are sitting in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they're virtually saying to Iran and also to Hezbollah in Lebanon, don't you even dare get involved. But I think Iran is mustering its proxy forces and hoping to bog Israel down in Gaza while it operates elsewhere. One thing that Iran won't want is Israel attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon, because that constitutes their deterrent force against Israel preventing Iran getting a nuclear device by 2025.
Chris, where do we go from here? They're talking about, if anything, the hostilities will escalate and Israel are more determined than ever, as you just alluded to. Is their mission to literally carry on until every last member of Hamas is destroyed? And then there's the issue of the hostages, isn't there? Israel has this sort of twin-pronged campaign: 1, to destroy Hamas, and 2, to get all of those hostages out. I think there's 140 or so left. Hamas aren't going to release those hostages, are they? They're bargaining chips. Going forward, I'm assuming we're looking at a long-term conflict here.
Well, I think we've got to look at how quickly Israel dealt with the northern part of Gaza. I think they could probably wrap this up within about a month in terms of military operations. But I think we must be aware that Israel has strategic objectives with regard to this conflict, which only marginally include the hostages. Israel's used to taking casualties. They'll accept that actually the hostages are in a very dangerous place. My own hunch is that there are 2 ways this ends. One is Israel totally eliminates Hamas in their tunnels, in their headquarters buildings and things like that, or Hamas gets a negotiated route out in return for the hostages. And Hamas fighters find their way either into Lebanon or somewhere else, a place of safety. In both cases, of course, Israel eliminates the threat. But I think we shouldn't be in any doubt that Israel is absolutely and emotionally committed to absolutely destroying Hamas.
We're beginning to learn via some newspaper reports that various countries, as part of these negotiations and talks, are already starting to look to the future and about what happens next if and when this conflict does come to an end, with an idea on the table of essentially expelling the remaining Hamas associates around other countries and instead making sure that Palestine can be governed by the Palestinian Authority. How realistic is that?
I think there needs to be a general review of what is going to happen in that part of the world. I think now that Israel has been penetrated on 7th of October, I think there's a sense of momentum with the Arabs at the moment. And I'm afraid to say that Israel is going to be under siege for quite some considerable time into the future. There'll always be the threat from Hezbollah in the north. There'll be the threat from Syria. And I think we better get used to Israel's borders being under quite a bit of threat. I know the Israelis are thinking about that now. And unless we have a general rethink about how this area is settled, it's going to be in continual conflict, I think, for the next few years.
Well, thank you, Chris.